'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Mooloolaba, Nambour, Roochdore, Kilmore, Marillaba, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville, Connemara, Strathrown, Proserpine, Alladala, Darwin, Gingin, Lilliquin, Muckdilla, Wallumbilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, Ramachilla. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man.
Lucky. I don't know that Lucky Star has been to Port Lincoln, but I tell you who has been there at 12 minutes to 11 o'clock or 22 minutes past 10. His name is Dave Barrowcliff. Dave, good morning.
Good morning. How are we this morning?
We are very well here. I'm assuming you are as well.
It's not too bad. Yeah, we've got a very wet Easter this year. It rained on Thursday a little bit. It threatened on Friday, and then as I say, yesterday was, and then last night we had quite a fair bit of rain. So yeah, a little bit of a change in the seasons.
Now, since we last spoke to you, you've now become the permanent host of the Saturday Sports Show on 5CC in Port Lincoln. What time is that on?
That's between 8 and 10. We've we have done a revised show this year, which is just 2 hours in the morning. It was actually an afternoon show for about 4 hours on and off and giving results, and that we've now gone back to 2 hours of just full-on correspondence talking sport. Yeah.
So we have dragged you away from the microphone to put you on the microphone.
Well, actually, this week we're having the week off, believe it or not. Of course, everyone knows SANFL, Victorian football and all that, but local football doesn't start until next week, of course, so and netball and stuff like that. So this is probably the middle of or in between of the seasons, I would say.
So you're having the week off because there's no sport to talk about. You should listen to our program. We don't need any content. We can manage to talk for 2 hours and make absolutely no sense.
Well, you're desperate. You're talking to a guy from Port Lincoln, aren't you?
Now, you sent through some notes, which is unheard of, and I saw the
impressive, though.
I saw the words Majestic Princess, and I thought, are we in fact talking about the lovely Trudy, or is that a cruise ship?
Lucky she can't tune in.
She is majestic and she's a princess?
That was a boat that we had over here, and we've just finished the season for the cruise ships. Actually, we had 12 this year, which was fantastic. And the Majestic Princess had 3,500 passengers. Now we're talking Port Lincoln only has approximately floating 17,000 people in there. So you had 3,500 on one day, and that's that's huge. Lots more coffee being served. That's for sure.
Yeah, none of them are owning a windscreen, sadly.
Well, yeah, I've always, every time I see a boat and everyone sort of gets on the old book face and says, "Oh, look at this, it's so good for the community." I'm like, yeah, well, no one gets into the EP windscreens, that's for sure.
There was a fair bit of controversy a few years ago about cruise ships being referred to as Petri dishes for the COVID virus. Is anyone nervous over there when 3,500 people come out of a little box and descend through the city spreading germs?
Oh, I think in reality now that no one really talks about COVID, I mean, I couldn't even tell you, Neil, whether I've actually even had it or not. I've had a couple of colds, but I think the old COVID thing's non-existent now as far as I'm concerned. In big regional areas, maybe yes, sort of thing, but I think Australia sort of sussed out and got it all under control. I mean, there's obviously probably more COVID cases now than when it first started, but no one talks about it anymore.
So it sort of doesn't raise any concern within the city when people come in, which is probably good in one sense, but we just want to hope that no more of these cases, because I know that there was a cruise ship that landed somewhere and about half of them had tested positive for COVID on the ship, and it did cause a bit of concern in the city. But if you're not talking about it over there, then that's probably okay.
Well, yeah, and I think the protocols are in place to make sure that, because we've learnt a lot over the last few years, so I think the protocols are in place to make sure that everything is sensible, without having to have and we all work in media, but without the hype of media drumming it up, I think it's the reality is that we live with it and we move on.
Well, the Herald Sun this morning, which is a newspaper that is published in this state rather than yours, there is an article. I noticed the headline. I didn't read the headline, but it said that we should be getting a bit vigilant about COVID because the case numbers are increasing. So I guess coming into winter, that's always on the cards, isn't it?
Well, that's right, but like I say, I think sensibility has taken over from panic attacks, and we're dealing with what we've got and realising that yes, it wasn't a very good thing at all. It was quite devastating for the whole world, really. But in hindsight, if you look at things sensibly, and run with the best options that you've got, then there is no need to panic. It's just something that happens.
We've never been accused of looking at things sensibly on this program. Don't you worry about that.
Dave, has some clever mathematician over there pressed the buttons to find out what significance to your economy 3,500 people dropping in for a day or so would make?
Well, once again, I mean, being an ex-councillor in the district council and that, I look at things very, very differently. Actually, it was quite a good experience being an elected member for 3 years. You tend to look at things from the other side and with a little bit more reality than a little bit more of let's fictionate things. But quite a bit of money probably does get spent. But like I say, when it comes to industry, it's only really hospitality that gains. We recently, up until not long ago, had a news agency in the family, and the odd card might get bought, but they certainly don't go and buy pens and pencils, rulers, and notepads. So
packets of A4 paper.
And packets of A4 paper to put in their printer. Yeah.
So,
perhaps magazines and books for some, I suppose.
Now,
the other thing you noted in your notes is if someone said, play word association Port Lincoln, they generally say tuna, or in fact fishing, because the oysters are quite good down Coffin Bay way, I'm told. The wild side, what's that about?
Well, it's something that I sort of heard about only a few weeks ago, but apparently the tourism board for the EP have got together and decided to do a little bit of rebranding. And like I also wrote in the little email that I sent you blokes, you two blokes, that the fishing industry's sort of gone a little bit quiet, and I think they had to reassess after COVID with shutdowns and how everything worked. The price of crayfish going from 110 down to, you could barely sell a crayfish for $55 at one stage. So I think they're now down to not worrying too much about tourism with seafood. So hence, of course, every place, the Geelong areas, the Melbourne areas, you've got to promote yourself to get people to go there these days. That's the way the world is. So they've come up with the wild side, which apparently they think this might be the way to go. We do have a lot of rugged coastline and stuff like that. So I suppose promoting in a different direction is the way to go. They're using terms like discover our ancient wild side, embrace your wild side, and this stems from Cowwood and Fowler's Bay, Tumbling Bay, Streaky, so a fairly big area.
That's you've got to have your little niche these days, don't you? And why not? Because that is, well, no, you head further towards the Nullarbor, that coastline is quite spectacular and it's well worth a look. So if you can get people to come for some a reason other than fishing or eating oysters, then why not? Because a town of 17,000 people, you need to keep the place vibrant. But Port Lincoln has always managed to be quite a vibrant place on the South Australian tourist target.
Well, it has, and I think good luck to the tourism board for what they're doing, because I suppose it's like everything. It's like myself being in business. You don't run the same ad on radio every single week. You chop and change depending on the weather, whether it's window tinting or windscreen. Same as Port Lincoln, we've been a seafood capital for a long, long time, and and I suppose if you want people to come back a third, fourth, or fifth time, then you need to spark their brains into gear and thinking, oh well, I never actually did the Great Australian Bite, or I never went to Tumbly Bay, I just went to Coffin's Bay and got Gavanda oysters from the Thompsons or something like that. So, so look, you've got to keep rebranding, you've got to keep yourselves in people's faces to get them to come and spend money.
Well, next time you're talking to the Tourist Bureau, start to focus on the fish and also all the other food and drink and stuff, and you can have the Great Australian BITE bite.
Oh, yeah.
You could use that if you want to.
Good one, Neil.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to shoot next door to start another show, but I'm going to leave you with a little grenade as I go. SANFL you mentioned. When I went to Keith to live, I was stunned at how few people spoke about the SANFL. Is it still important for people around Port Lincoln, or is it just all crows and power?
Oh, geez, Rob, you don't want to get me started on this one. We're actually now the Nord Redlegs area for recruiting. We were actually the Port Magpies, which is the Powers reserve side, as they like to call themselves, but we're now Nord sort of thing. And it's pretty big over here when you talk about Nord and the support they have. They play a local game over here, but it's a bit like the Vic Leagues, VFA back in the day sort of thing. They're dying and they need restructures, and the SANFL struggles to get 1,500 people to a game sometimes. So they've got a lot of work in front of them over the next few years.
Well, at least in your perspective, you love the fact that it's Norwood, because that's your team. Dave, we've got to get going because, as Rob said, he's going in next door to organise Sports Fix, which is coming up after our 11 o'clock and after your 10:30. Thanks for being part of Regional Roundup, and we shall chat again soon, no doubt.
Good on you two blokes. We'll see you again.
Thanks, mate. Dave Barrowcliff there in South Australia.